Welcome to the Bird Brains with Ken and Mark. I'm ex-Philadelphia Eagles, Philadelphia Stars tight end Ken Dunek. My partner is the longtime beat writer for the Eagles, Mark Eckel. Mark, I don't know how to react to what I saw yesterday. I think I'm mad, I'm frustrated, I'm angry, I'm questioning the Eagles coaching staff. And we've got a special guest today, and we were chatting before we started the podcast. There's nobody in the world that I would rather have on this podcast today than Seth Joyner, the Eagles Hall of Famer. So, Mark, give me a little recap of what you saw transpire at the end of that game.
Well, not just the end. I mean, you kind of saw it coming. I did anyway. It was 21-0, and you thought, all right, this is easy. Dallas played awful the first half. The Eagles were kind of fortunate. Dallas shot themselves in the foot more than once. I mean, they had a couple dumb penalties. Dak throws that interception in the end zone.
Going forward at midfield in the first quarter, that I have a pet peeve with, all that kind of stuff.
Sometimes you give the other team credit, but like the Eagles did, it was unforced penalties that Dallas had a lot of them. So anyway, but it's 21-0, and I'm thinking, oh well, I'm almost. It's funny. My wife, who's learning football more and more every year, whatever, says to me, "Was this game supposed to be this one-sided?" Well, the Eagles are pretty good. I said, Dallas isn't what they used to be, just because she thinks Dallas is still Dallas, right? I said, so I'm not shocked it's 21-0, but I thought it'd be closer, And then all of a sudden it's 21-7, 20, and I turned to her, and she's like, "It's getting close now." I said, "Yeah, it is." So you kind of like the Eagles needed to score again. I kept saying, if they score again.
They didn't score for the last 41 minutes of the game. They didn't score, which is incredible.
Obviously.
Well, let me thank a couple sponsors, and we'll go ahead and Seth Joyner on here. First of all, Sweet Recording Studios is our host. We're in a remote location right now, but normally they're getting their new studios prepared, and we'll be in there soon. Contact Joe Gangemi if you have an interest in doing a podcast, joe@sweetrecording.com. Of course, our good friend is Chris Wilhelm of Citywide Mortgage. Chris can handle all of your home mortgage needs. Chris can be contacted at 609-234-4304. Tony DiGirolamo of DiGirolamo Financial. He's a one-stop shop for all your financial and insurance needs. Contact Tony DiGirolamo at 609-541-7515. And Adjust Your Sleep Mattress Boutique is located in Marlton, New Jersey. Did you know that sleep is essential to your health and your sleep system, the foundation of optimal rest? Whether you're grinding through the week or gearing up for game day, we've got custom mattresses for every budget. Change your mattress, change your life. Call Kelly at 856-357-3640 and take your sleep to Super Bowl status. And I did want to mention that Jersey Man Magazine had a very successful gala, the Unmasking Gala, on Thursday, November 13th. Mark, we had 520 people, a ballroom at the Bend. We raised a record amount for charity. We want to thank everybody for participating in that. And if you have any interest in joining the Jersey Man Network, the QR code is on your screen, or you can contact me, Ken, at jerseymanmagazine.com. And with that, I want to bring in our special guest. So Seth Joyner, obviously his resume is
you guys
undeniable. How are you, Seth?
I'm doing good, man. Gosh.
You a little choked up from the Eagles coughing yesterday?
It's contagious, man.
Yeah. Seth was an incredible player for the Eagles, 13 seasons in the league, 8 with the Eagles. I did not realize until I checked or I had forgotten, I'm sure I realized that you actually played in a Super Bowl with the Packers and then won the Super Bowl with Denver the next season.
Yeah.
So that you talk about the cherry on a tremendous career. And of course, he's the Eagles Hall of Famer. So Seth, I got to tell one Seth Joyner story, and then we're going to talk football. So Mike Quick invites us to Pine Valley. And, Pine Valley, I played there many times, but it's an intimidating place. And I'm paired with Seth and Gerald Henderson Jr. and Billy Heineman of the first team. So we're playing the first hole, and Seth, I think, hits a little bit short of the green, chips it up, and misses the putt. He makes a bogey. He's one over. We get to the second hole, and if people that haven't played Pine Valley, there are no rakes at Pine Valley. If you hit it in a bunker and you're in a footprint, you have to play it out of there. It's something that's indigenous to that golf course. Well, Seth hits it into a footprint in the front bunker and scuffs it out and makes a 6. Now, he's a competitive guy. He's steamy. I go up and put my arm around him and say, Seth, come on, it's Pine Valley. And he didn't want to hear it, man. I'm like, I'm not intimidated by too many people. I say, maybe I better back off and let this guy do his thing, right? So he winds up shooting 76 at Pine Valley after going 3 over par. He hit a shot on the uphill par 5 that he birdied the uphill par 5. He hits it like 20 yards short of the green. And it was an amazing display of golf from a tremendous football player who are not known for their golfing skills, by the way. Football players with all the muscle mass usually are not good golfers. So, Seth, did I leave anything out of that story? We had a good time, right?
All I know is your memory is a lot better than mine.
Well, I remember because I got to play golf with you. Playing golf with me is not that memorable. So anyway, I got to tell you that we're going to talk about what happened yesterday. And I wrote down that the first half was efficient. The second half was sloppy with really poor coaching decisions, and we'll go over all of those. And then, of course, it was a tragic ending. Seth, tell me what you saw in your comments about what happened yesterday.
What I saw as a team, who has been, flailing offensively all season with a defense that has been growing all season. Call it injuries, call it coaching, call it whatever you will, but this offense just doesn't run efficiently. They don't make in-game adjustments. And it's funny because a couple of weeks ago, I think the media here in Philadelphia asked Vic Fangio about halftime adjustments, and he said, halftime adjustments are a fallacy. He said because at the end of the day, if you got to wait till halftime before you make adjustments, you've already lost the game. So one of the issues that I see with the Eagles is that offensively, they don't make a ton of adjustments, in game. It's like what we run is what we run. And you can't play that way because the adjustments are a part of the game. They came out, they had 3 efficient drives, scored 3 touchdowns. Dallas adjusted, and they never made the adjustment to the adjustment, and it cost them the game. Mm-hmm. The other thing is they don't convert third downs. They're one of the worst teams in the National Football League on third down. And they started off yesterday, while they had success in the first half, they were 4-6 on third down conversions in the first half. They came back in the second half and went 1 for 6. Mm-hmm. And you just can't do that to your defense. The defense was constantly back on the field because of the 1 and outs, the 1 and outs, the 1 and outs. And then when you throw in the 2 turnovers, that just exacerbated the situation even that much more. You can't, what more can you ask your defense to do?
Hey, Mark, we talked a little bit about the offensive line last week, and our offensive line was dominated by the Dallas defensive front yesterday. First of all, Fred Johnson is not Lane Johnson. Fred Johnson is a pretty good player, but you're losing Lane Johnson, and that's a blow. The offensive line is obviously getting older. We lost Mekhi Becton. Steen is not Mekhi Becton. Juergens is fighting through injury, and Landon Dickerson gave up a crucial sack in the second half yesterday. So are you surprised that the offensive line is struggling the way they are? Because they were in Hurts's face all day long.
Well, not all. I mean, like I said, the first 3 drives, they looked fine. It looked like it was going to be a blowout. I mean, I'm watching that game and I'm thinking, man, Dallas played awful the first half too. There's so many self-inflicted penalties. Dak throws the interception in the end zone. I'm thinking this is going to be 38-7 or something. And then, like Seth said, Dallas did give Dallas credit. Give the Dallas coaching staff some credit. They did do stuff. They saw what was happening and fixed it. And Sirianni, Fangio, and Petula kind of just thought this was going to be. They probably thought like me, we're going to win 38-7. We're going to win when they didn't do anything.
Seth, let's talk about the fact that we've got a 21-0 lead. At halftime, it was 21-7. Now, You would think at starting the second half, you would want to shorten the game, which means you need to have at least, I believe, a 60% run to 40% pass ratio. Well, we come out and we throw it, of the first 12 plays, we throw it 9 times. So I guess so much for shortening the game. You've got the best running back, maybe in Eagles history, and you've got to figure out he had 10 carries for 22 yards yesterday. I mean, that's an embarrassment against the Dallas defense. So I've got a laundry list here of the things that the Eagles, what went wrong with the Eagles yesterday. But talk about the concept of, I know it's too early to take the foot off the gas, but schematically, I think you want to lean more towards the run, especially to chew up some clock and make the game shorter, don't you?
Well, the problem is, Ken and Mark, is they can't run the football. And by the way they played the second half, that's an admission that we can't run it. Like, when you have a lead and you still refuse to run the football because it's been proven that you can't run on the team, then guess what? When you make the decision to throw it as much as they did in the second half, that's a self-admission that we can't run it, so we're just going to throw it. They abandon the run. To me, it's a combination of things. I feel like you have to go all the way back to the offseason. The most egregious decision they made was not bringing Mekhi Becton back at $10 million per year on a 2-year deal. That's what the LA Chargers signed him to. 10 years of $20 million, two-year deal. Okay, you mean to tell me you couldn't find $10 million to bring back one of the key components to why your running back just rushed for 2,000 yards? That made no sense to me. And as much confidence as that you have in Tyler Steen, and he's a draft pick, I get it. You know, you got to find out what you got in the guy. But while you have this window open, you don't upset the apple cart of what you have for that guy. Because when I look at Tyler Steen, I see, you know, a guy I just see a guy, you know, as the, you know, the young podcasters like to say, he's a jag. He's just a guy. He's nothing special. Like, he doesn't move the line of scrimmage. He's not, you know, a dominant player. You know, he doesn't do a whole lot of things well. He doesn't run well. And when you made that decision, I think that was the beginning. Now, throw into it that Cam Jurgens had off-season back surgery. I would find it hard to believe that he's going to be 100% the entire season. And then you throw into the mix that, you know, Landon Dickerson with his, you know, injury-prone, you know, the optics of him being as injury-prone as he is, he hasn't played dominant. Throw in there also that both tackles, you know, have played kind of lackluster. And now you've lost Lane Johnson. Like, I don't have a problem with Fred Johnson. I think Fred Johnson is the heir apparent at that position. I don't even think that you have to go and draft somebody else depending on how old he is. When Lane decides to walk, Fred Johnson is the answer. But then you have to go and you got to bring in some other help, because the fact that you lose the talent with Lane is only half the story. The other half of the story is, if Fred Johnson has to play for Lane, who's the 6th offensive lineman in your big package? Matt Pryor, 1 play yesterday and a penalty, and he never saw the field again. And if you're not protecting, you can always go to the extra 6 offensive linemen, you know, to help create a 6-7 man protection and just run 2-man routes. You know, so a lot of what I'm seeing is you're not able to run the football because you're not as dominant up front as you once were. And some of the blocking schemes are even questionable, because I pulled a clip and put it on social media last week. Can they actually ask Cam Jurgens to reach a 4-eye technique? That's virtually impossible. How do you ask him to reach a guy that far? So they walked the safety down, and once they walked the safety down weak side, they were in an over defense or under. I forget. Let me see. They were in an under defense. So when they walked the extra guy down, that meant that Lane had to go to the safety. The guard, Steen, had to go to the end, and then you're asking the center to reach all the way over to a 4-eye technique. It's impossible.
Maybe,
I don't
maybe you thought
understand.
Jason Kelsey was still on the team.
No, listen,
really
Jason Kelsey's not reaching that guy. I'm
Yeah.
telling you right now, that's not the first time I've seen them do that within the run game. That 4-eye technique tackle shot up the field, and before you know it, the run play had lost 3 yards. There has to be a check at the line of scrimmage to put you in the right situation and change the blocking scheme, because what they did was they had the numbers to begin with, and the run game is all about the numbers. It's 11 players, so you have a weak side and a strong side. And when they had the numbers, they sent Dallas Goedert in motion across, and the minute they did that, they lost the numbers game. And now all of a sudden they still decide to run it in there, even though Jalen could see that they lost the running game. What should have happened is that play should have been checked, and they should have ran the ball to the other side. But these are the kind of issues that's facing this offense and why they can't run the ball.
Mark, we've talked about some curious offseason moves, and of course, not signing Beckham is one of them. Not signing Darius Slay was another one. I think we could have got another year or two out of him. And Adoree Jackson continues to struggle in that position. I think he's gotten a little bit better, but if the other team is going to attack our defense, they're going to throw it at Jackson, and they did that several times yesterday.
They brought in Carter. They moved Cooper DeJean outside, and we saw why Vic was hesitant about doing that, because he's a much better slot corner than he is outside corner. Now listen, Dallas, Pickens and Lamb. Although Lamb's dropping more passes than I've ever seen.
He likes to drop them against the Eagles, didn't he? He dropped them in the first game.
But Pickens, apparently he's a head case off the field. But I loved him in college, Pickens, and when he was at Georgia, I thought he was great. I mean, I didn't know all the other stuff about him, but I mean, Pittsburgh could use him right now too. I mean, he's just a good player, I think. But
yeah.
Seth, you've been on when you played. There were some controversial things going on in the locker room and around the team. This team, even at 8-2, playing great, but there's always drama with the Eagles, right? And AJ Brown says some things and puts some things out on social media. And I don't know Sirianni well, and I can't criticize him anymore because he won a Super Bowl and he's winning games at an unbelievable rate. But I think he reads and listens too much to what goes on. It seemed to me like they were going to appease AJ Brown yesterday. They were going to get him the ball because he was complaining that he wasn't getting the ball enough. So they went out and said and AJ Brown had a great game, numbers wise. They
eight catches, 110 yards, and a touchdown.
That's Pro Bowl level, right? That's what he's looking for. But can sometimes they were doing fine with him being just doing what he was doing. I thought they went out of their way to appease AJ Brown at the cost of running the ball and doing the things why they were 8-2. Am I wrong?
Well, I think that they have to get the passing game. The passing game has been so anemic lately, that they had to figure out a way to work through it. And it's crazy that you could be in week 12 and we're still talking about working through some things and making improvements. Some of the same things they said in weeks 1, 2, and 3, they're now saying in weeks 11 and 12. It doesn't make sense to me. There's nothing. I have no problem if your intent is to come out, and pass early and get a lead. But the minute you went up 21-0, you've got to figure out a way to run the football. Okay. The other problem I have is when you get out of whack and out of balance. There's nothing wrong with giving AJ his targets, but there are 4 other wide receivers on the field. You've got a tight end, you've got a running back, you've got a slot, and you've got Smitty. Jahan Dotson. My goodness, that guy must be just like, you don't even have to wash my uniform. Just hang it up and get it ready, for the next week. Because it's like, I don't understand how he plays a whole game and doesn't get a single target yesterday. As much, and Jalen threw the ball 37 or 39 times?
39 times, 27 for 39 for 2.
How in the world do you throw the ball 37 times and Jahan Dotson doesn't get a single? So you basically put your worst DB on him and not worry about it, because the thought process is that, they're not going to target him anyway. So just go ahead and throw the ball. Let's figure out how we can take away AJ and how we can take away Devontae. But it's the same thing. I'm a firm believer in your offense is your offense, but within the realm of your offense, you go through progressions and you always give the ball to the open guy. I'm not trying to force it. So I put up on Twitter, this earlier, well, late last night, a shot where on that third down play, 3rd and 2, okay, late in the game. First of all, they should have ran the ball. There's no way that you put Jalen in a situation where potentially, first of all, he's got to get the ball out of his hand. He can't take a sack there. But the other thing is also don't call a play to put him in a bad position. You run the football there. If you get 1 yard, great. You come back, tush push, boom. You got a first down. You keep the drive going. But after you decide to throw the ball on 3rd and 2 instead of running it, now and the quarterback takes a 14-yard sack, you have no other choice but to punt it. And this game set and match at that point, because the defense is cooked. They already have the momentum. The worst thing you could do is give it back to the offense, in that situation. But even that play, so Jalen snaps the ball. They got AJ on the slant, okay? The DB just gets all up in AJ's grill, and he jams the hell out of him. And, you're really only supposed to jam the guy once in the 5-yard area, and then you got to, get off. But he kind of double, triple jammed him. And Jalen stayed on him, waiting for him to break free. Mm-hmm. Where if he would have just went through his natural progression, if I look at that guy, if it's not there right now, I go to the next guy. That's the way that your progression has to work. But Jalen doesn't operate that way. When he makes up his mind, he's throwing somewhere, he gets on that guy. And if that guy's not open, he will continue to wait for that guy to come open instead of going to the next guy in the progression. And that's what happened. Dallas Goedert was right there in front of him, wide open for a first down. But he was so intent, and his mind was made that he was going to throw the ball to AJ. AJ never got open, and he wound up taking the sack that, in my opinion, really cost them the game.
By the way, I'm glad you brought up that play, because you talk about an unimaginative design. There was no motion. There's no play action. It's just Jalen dropping back. And, Seth, as a defensive player, motion confuses defenses because you're moving people around. So the Eagles play calling, certainly on that play, is unimaginative. Listen, I wrote down a laundry list.
It's not just the motion either. What happened to getting Jalen under center? Like when we had success a couple of weeks ago, he didn't get under center, I don't think, other than the tush push yesterday. It's like, what happens to these concepts? What happens to, the different concepts that they have within their playbook that disappears from time to time, that doesn't help the quarterback, be the most efficient self that he can be? There's some problems on the offensive side of this ball. And everybody talks about, they're still 8-3, everything's in front of them. Listen, who and what they are is who and what they are. That's not going to change. The kind of wholesale changes that they need to make, you make those in the offseason. Right now, they got to ride and roll with what they are and what they got. And if the coaches can't make the adjustments, then what we've continued to see through 11 weeks of football, we're going to continue to see the rest of the way.
Hey, Mark, I wrote down a laundry list of the mistakes that the Eagles made in the second half. Listen to this. I ran out of space in my paper, but I'm going to try to do the best I can. We have a 12 men on the field, which nullifies an interception. Zach Bond drops an easy interception. Kylie Ringo has a pass interference, and Dallas scores a touchdown on the very next play. Offensive pass interference by Devontae Smith. A false start by A.J. Brown. Jake Elliott misses a field goal. Fred Johnson, hands to the face, negates a first down. Saquon Barkley fumbles for the first time this year. The worst one was our punt returner, Gibson, handles a punt on the 1-yard line. It gets rocked and fumbles. It used to be back in the day, you were called off the ball inside the 5 or 10-yard line. It was a given. I don't know if he lost track of where he was, but I thought that was the biggest play for Dallas. And then, Brown got beat twice late on the last drive. It was really a comedy of errors what went on there in the second half.
Yeah, I don't understand, because like Seth talks about the schemes, and the offense has struggled throughout a lot of the wins. Even the defense carried them, but they didn't make these kind of mistakes. Like you said, the punt. Now they're lucky Dallas didn't score after that punt. I can't believe Dallas had the ball first and goal at the 8 and didn't get any points out. Give the defense some credit there, a lot of credit there. But yes, I mean stuff like that. You learn that in high school. You don't catch a ball at the one. You don't catch a punt at the 1 yard line like that, and then to make it worse, he fumbles. I mean, so yeah, stuff like that. That's just uncalled. That's like Seth said before we started. It's going to be an interesting week in Philly.
Seth, were you scratching your head at all those mistakes they just mentioned?
Well, the thing that concerns me the most, Ken, is, Nick Sirianni, in his post-game presser last night, he says, we got to fix the things that don't take talent to fix, Well, obviously they do take talent, because you've been singing these phrases, you've been singing this cliche, all year long. Your pre-snap penalties, your penalties on first down that continues to put you behind the chains, not making plays when they present themselves on the defensive side of the ball. I can't count how many times we've had hands on balls on the defensive side of the ball and didn't come away with the interception. Special teams, the hard and fast rule is you put your heels on the 10-yard line, and anything that goes over your head, you let it go. Now, I know what he's probably thinking. Well, this was a deep punt. He kind of outkicked his coverage probably, and I can catch this ball and pick up 15, 20 yards before the coverage get there. Wrong. That rule is for a reason. I don't give a damn whether, whether you're trying to block the punt, which normally turns into a fair catch situation for the returner, or whether, you've got a return left or right or middle or whatever it is that you have called. If your heels are on the 10-yard line and that ball forces you to back up, okay, you are supposed to let that ball go. Just run up to the 15-yard line and wave your hand like the ball is coming at the 15-yard line and act like you're ready to catch it, and it's over your head. You let it bounce into the end zone. We get the ball out at the 20-yard line. I just don't understand. That is Harry High School, and Chris College type things. You know what I'm saying? That's messaging that comes from the coaching staff. But Nick talks about it. But we've been talking about these same issues. They've been making these same mistakes all year long. We're into week 13 of the National Football season, and you're talking about the little small details. And I got to get the messaging right. What has the messaging been like all along? If you continue, you keep making the same mistakes over and over and over. On the offensive line, it's a comedy errors because they take turns. Lane gets run over one time. Jordan Mailata gets run over the next time. How are you 6'8", 365 pounds, and a guy that's 6'2", 255 pounds is pushing you back into the quarterback? Sit your big ass down, anchor, and stop him already. At some point that has to be the mindset. But and then you got this guy jumping offside, that guy flinching, illegal procedure. You got illegal formation. What the hell are you doing at practice every single week? Because I can promise you, coaches used to say it all the time, but I know it to be factual. You practice how you play.
Absolutely.
But some of these things that you're seeing happening in games, I promise you they're happening in practice.
Let's talk about the Eagles playing Chicago on a short week, and we've got some injury issues. Reed Blankenship came out with a thigh injury yesterday. We lost Makuba late. Dory Jackson had a concussion. We'll see if he's able to play. Jomo had a hand injury, and you're playing a pretty good team in another 4 or 5 days. So, Mark, what are your listen, obviously, unless there's a 64 Phillies type of collapse, the Eagles should win the division. They're 8-3, and Dallas is 5-1. But I'm saying, this week is going to be a challenge. And moving forward, you got the Chargers, and then you get a break with the Raiders and the Commanders. But what are your thoughts specifically on this week and what the Eagles have to do to rally the troops here?
Well, clean things. I mean, they're a better team than the Bears, I think. The Bears have been playing well, and their new coach has done an incredible job, and everybody thought he would, and he has. But if you look at what the Bears have actually done, they're 8-3, which is remarkable. But 7 of those 8 wins have come against teams with losing records, and the 8th win came against Pittsburgh with a backup quarterback. The 3 good teams they played, they've lost: the Ravens, the Lions, and I forget the third team. So the Eagles, I think they're a 7-point favorite. That's about right. The Eagles should win that. If they lose to the Bears, now we got to start talking about things. You lose at home on a short week to a team that's better, but still not a young quarterback. I think Vic Fangio should have some things to show a second-year guy that hasn't seen everything yet. But I remember last week when we had Elliott Shore Parks, I asked him is because he was saying how the offense was struggling and they're older and this and that. And I remember I asked him, I said, well, is the defense good enough to carry the offense through the rest of the year to get back to a Super Bowl? He said, as long as they're home, yes. Right. The Rams won last night. They're not home anymore. The Rams are home, right? I mean, we got 6 games to go for both teams, but right now the Rams are the top seed. So that's have to play for. Forget the division. Yeah, they're going to win a division. Dallas put themselves into too big a hole, but they got to try to get the Rams to come to Philly in January, not them going out there to Los Angeles. That's what it's all about. For me, that's what it's about from here on out, getting that home field advantage back.
Yeah, I agree. Well, listen, I told you it would go quickly, and it has. Seth Joyner, we want to thank you for joining us. We really appreciate it. Save my number if you ever want an easy mark in golf again, and we'll get out there and give it another try. And Mark, you and I will be now. First of all, happy Thanksgiving week, everybody. The Eagles play on Friday. We're going to do our next podcast on Monday because I'll still be full of turkey and wine, and I won't be able to respond by Saturday morning. So we will do that, and then hopefully we'll be talking about an Eagles victory against the Bears on Friday. So for Mark Eckel and Seth, what's that, Mark?
That's next week as well. Merrill Reese, right?
Oh yes, Merrill Reese is on. Yeah, but I tell you what, you got the stars coming out this year, Mark. Good job. Very good. Yeah, we've had some great guests, and today's certainly was one of the best. So for my partner Mark Eckel and Eagles great Seth Joyner, I'm Ken Dunek. Thanks for watching the Bird Brains with Ken and Mark, everybody, and we will see you next Monday. Take care.